And then I'm going to share screen, which will get us to, let's see, how do I do this? Share screen. Where's Dan? I need digital sacristan here. There we go. Yep. It's amazing how spoiled you can get as a pastor. And where's my slideshow? I'm beginning. Oop, there we go. This is different. So you can all see something. This is different. You can see the screen, I assume. Everyone, Tyler, give me a thumbs up. Can you see everything? Yep. And then
Not everybody muted.
Is it side by side? Everyone able to go side by side on presentation mode? Tyler, is that working for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the tiles aren't covered. Okay, so I want to make sure that. And I'm trying, there's something goofy wonky going on with mine. Okay, there we go. Now I got it.
Brian, not everybody's muted.
No, that's all right. They don't have to be muted. Yeah, muting's not fine. All right, that's right. So, all right, so here we go. My apologies for that. So let's jump in now. We can get rolling here. Got that figured out. Technology. That picture there on the screen was taken by one of our members from downtown who lives downtown. I think it was a beautiful picture. Last night, I put the spotlights from Blink, the colored lights that we had during Blink a year ago, on 3 sides of the bell tower. So the south side of the bell tower is not lit, but it's kind of getting glimpsed there. But the north side and the west side facing Music Hall in the park, and then the east side there you see are lit up, and they'll come on at sunset and stay on for 6 hours afterwards. So each night they'll be lit as long as the tower is there. So it's a nice frame with that white facade of the Music Hall behind it. And I think most pictures you see of the bell tower are taken from Washington Park, and so you don't have that glimpse there. So it's nice to give some perspective of the location of the tower and the significance of that right there in Washington Park. And for 125 years, those 2 monument buildings looking at each other there. So this is the second, we had an update back in September 24th, and that's available on our YouTube channel, or if you scroll back through our Facebook channel, you can see the recorded version of that. And that was a 1-hour presentation. And that was the information we had at the time. 2 months have passed. And so now we have obviously a great deal more information. So we'll share the new stuff, but I want to run through some of the highlights of that last meeting, but not dwell on too much. But we'll start off with this quote here is what this is from the City of Cincinnati emergency abatement order we received on November 10th. And it says the bell tower of the church has suffered serious deterioration, is in danger of collapse, and presents an immediate threat and hazard to the public safety. So a pretty clear message there from the City of Cincinnati building inspector that this is an issue of public safety first and foremost. And so that's the driver there, is what's driving the necessity for the bell tower to come down and the speed. Now, as we mentioned before we started recording, just to make the statement that there is some sense that as people don't get the fullness information, they think that the City of Cincinnati is swooping in here and they are the ones somehow making us do this. Well, certainly on a legalistic sense, yes, they are, but it's something that we initiated of ourselves because we needed to do the investigation to find out what it would take to restore it. And in the process of an effort we initiated, we discovered the deteriorated condition and we brought it to the attention of the city. I guess we could have said, let's just keep this a secret and hope it stands for another year. But that would not be good stewardship for the safety of the people that we welcome into our building. And so with that, then we made it known to the City of Cincinnati, the Historic Urban Conservatory Board, and that then led to this report here. So a little bit more on that in a bit. This picture here is, this represents, kind of how active this process is. So we now have the order that we can demolish the building, the bell tower. And when the bell tower comes down, we have to put a temporary roof. And what we just discovered, Alan's on here and he can comment maybe after the presentation if there's questions about it, but that blue line that he drew on there is where the bell tower will be coming down to. And what we discovered, what Alan discovered in working with the engineers to design this temporary roof cap that's going to go there, is that the cone-shaped roof in the center of the church is the rafters come down and they tie into the bell tower wall above the main beams. So on that part of the bell tower, we can't remove that stone because they support the cone-shaped roof structure in the middle. So that just makes it a little bit more complicated to design that temporary roof cap there. But that image there, that blue line, does give you a sense of a visual before we go further, what the bell tower will look like, what part's being demolished and what will be left, for example. Then also we're looking at it down to the left of the main church building. At the bottom of the bell tower is that salmon colored building, is the 1212 building. And we'll talk more about that, but just know that that building, not the facade will remain as it is, but the building behind it will be demolished, because that's where the staging will happen for the demolition process. You can see the Washington Park streetcar platform right there next to the left of that tree, to the right of the salmon building. And there's a whole streetcar platform there, and the streetcar lines, they make what I call a Western approach to the demolition effort to the bell tower virtually impossible, with the exception of maybe setting up a large crane in Race Street and shutting down the streetcar and all vehicular traffic, and then taking that crane over the top of the wires, so that the tower would then be demolished that way through a kind of a bucketed system with a crane pulling pieces back. That's not practical, and it's very cost prohibitive. So that's not an option that we're considering. So next, we have the path to 2020. This will be a little review here. We'll go through it quickly. And then again, I'll refer you back to the September information session that's available on YouTube channel or the Facebook page to get the fullness of this information. But one is, when I arrived in 2014, 6 years ago, we did an assessment of the building, identified $3.1 million worth of capital restoration work to be done. And the decision then was, the people of First Lutheran said, we're going to stay here and we're going to tackle that. We're committed, because the option then could have been, let's sell this building. It's a nice piece of real estate. Someone else like Taft's Ale House or Transept, there's interest in that type of event venue restoration investor projects. But the faith community of First Lutheran said, no, we're not going, and we're going to continue the efforts to restore this building. Next would be, during that same time, since 2014, we've engaged probably 8 different consultants and to help us do some internal capital campaign efforts, but also significantly to discern if there is any resources from either local or national grant foundations, community organizations, or even private philanthropists. But that was just, so that again, is, you can look at the details of what those efforts look like. Historic tax credits, another example in there. And a big one that keeps being brought up now in the past 24 hours is Partners for Sacred Places, a national organization that helps historic church buildings restore their buildings, and they have grants available. We did partner with them. We hired them for $15,000 in 2017. They came in and did a discovery study with us. We helped them identify 20 key stakeholders in this community of Cincinnati, from arts to historic preservation to family foundations and city elected officials. They came and talked and listened. And the outcome of that was, the discovery of that discovery study is that there are some resources that would be made available, but not significant enough to provide a solution for our restoration efforts, I guess would be the way to phrase that. Next is 2015 to 2022. We had efforts to raise capital funds. So we secured those. And then it goes through 2022 because we have commitments that were made last fall for 3 years. And so we've entered that 3-year pledge period, and we still have 2 years of that left. So we've identified capital fund resources. When I talk about those later in this presentation, they include through 2022. So what we spend on this bell tower will be depleting our available fund resources, with the exception of our mortgage payments, through 2022, when we will then conduct our next 3-year capital campaign. And that's internal focused, I should mention. Next, it was last February, we had in hand a proposal from Ignite Philanthropy, which they conducted the community campaign for Music Hall and the Blink events. And so we had a contract proposal in hand from them to conduct a community campaign on behalf of First Lutheran and with First Lutheran that would last 18 months. would be a cost of $180,000, but would potentially secure the remaining $1.8 million for restoration work. Ignite Philanthropy would not have presented us a proposal if they didn't think there was some level of possibility to secure at least a significant amount, if not all of those, if not all, then a significant amount of that $1.8 million stated goal. Based on the last 24 hours, the response from the social media about the news of the bell tower going to be demolished, I think that it really shows that the community outside of First Lutheran community is really passionate about what's happening with our restoration efforts. And so the message there, I think, is if we would have moved forward with our community campaign as planned, there would have been a strong response. How much, I don't know, but it just seems that there's a lot of interest in supporting our restoration efforts. The thought, I'm losing on to catch, make sure I don't miss this thought, is I'm going to have to come back to that. So the community campaign, secure. Oh boy, I lost that. I'm going to have to come back to that one. So anyway, my apologies. So, and then what happened was COVID-19, the economic recession uncertainties have eliminated the possibility of moving forward with that community campaign for the foreseeable future. Even though there's talks of vaccine and treatments, that's going to take a while. And then the question is, how long will it take for people to resume a new normal sense of activity, and what's that going to look like when it comes to activity in venues like worship and concerts, recitals, and human services at First Lutheran and other places. We just don't know, so we have to wait on that. So there's a little caution that we're being mindful of as we look to our future. I wish I would have thought about I'm trying to go back on that community campaign, is that it's encouraging to see the response from the community as they come forward and are indeed interested in supporting our efforts in this area. But we won't know because we aren't conducting that campaign. And then July 2020, we invited THP structural engineers to do a closer inspection on the bell tower, so we'd know what we were up against as we move forward and then got deeper into that effort of restoring the bell tower. And that's when they identified some critical concerns with the tower, and then moved forward. We authorized a full engineering report. We've spent $6,000 or $7,000 this year on these engineering conditions reports that have informed the decisions about the tower, which then ultimately informed City of Cincinnati, their inspection, and supported the findings. So out of that THP report, which was finalized and given to us on September 16th, 2020, so 2 months ago, the bell tower structure and facade veneer are in poor condition, requiring immediate remediation to establish the stability of these building elements. Should the cost of remediation exceed viable resources, the bell tower should be raised to the level of the supporting girders. So that phrase there, when it was actually late July, we had a verbal message that that could be a possibility, appeared to be the reality, pretty high level of certainty. So we began contacting the city at that point to give them a heads up that something might be coming like this. And then this actual official document then confirmed that. And then we then immediately forwarded that on to the City of Cincinnati building inspector and Historic Conservancy leader, Beth Johnson. And together they then coordinated, and that led to a site inspection by the head inspector, building inspector for the City of Cincinnati, who then verified the findings in this document. If anyone's interested in seeing this document, I can make that available. Reach out to me. It's a it's a reasonable document that if you're an engineer, you can certainly understand a great deal more than I with a seminary degree. But even I was able to pick up a great deal of information in there. Capital projects completed, maybe a step back real quick to see, just a quick review what we have accomplished at first. And this paints a picture of why tackling the restoration of the bell tower is a challenge for the First Lutheran faith community on our own. We have done, since 2015, $30,000 worth of interior improvements that was completed by volunteers. There'll be pictures on the next slide to show this work. The facade restoration, the stained glass on the facade, the gallery restoration, the altar wall in the main sanctuary. We did some roof repair and some new roof work. And then here are the pictures. You can see the work that has been done while we've been engaging consultants and conducting capital fundraiser we have also been actively restoring all this work you see there in the past 5 years. So a significant amount has been accomplished. And I think what one analogy on the bell tower I used on a Facebook post last night was that it's almost like in a game, the clock ran out before we could get to the bell tower restoration. We ran out of time. We couldn't get there soon enough to restore it before it became too critical of a nature. But on the other hand, all this work that's been finished that you see, the stained glass windows, the roof repair leaks that have made possible the gallery restoration, the sanctuary restoration, the restoration of the First Lutheran sign, all of that we have been successful. So we can celebrate that. It's just we came up short on getting to the bell tower in sufficient or quick enough time to restore that. So we do celebrate this significant amount, and our people have been financially and time-wise, leadership-wise, and volunteer-wise invested significantly in a 5-year period. So much so that, just to go back, in 2018, First Lutheran received the Over the Rhine Chamber of Commerce Architectural Revitalization Award. To give you a sense of perspective, the previous year that award was given to Music Hall. So we're in good company there. It's a significant thing to lift up. To be recognized that way. Over the Rhine is 300 acres of historic buildings and a lot of renovations going on. So to be recognized in that way is a significant accomplishment for our small faith community. Next, capital fund sources during this time. This is where we look at the financial resources that have been brought to bear to make this work possible and what we are going to be doing next with the bell tower. The property projects appeal, again, I said $30,000 that funded the volunteer work. We had a capital campaign on track and resolute. That one primarily funded the facade restoration work, but it also inspired significant donations for the restoration of the gallery of about $250,000 came in. That was from Friends of First, other Lutherans that were inspired by what we did, and they made the gallery restoration possible. We also borrowed $620,000 from our denominational lender, Mission Investment Fund. It's I'm trying to think the interest rate is 3 7/8, if I'm not mistaken. That'll be coming up for an opportunity to refinance, which might be good here in next year. But we do have $581,000 balance remaining on that mortgage there as of today. And then we have most recently last fall conducted a second major capital campaign within our community, Faith Forward. That one secured funds for hiring a new ministry staff person. We're doing all this great work in restoring the building, and it's generating a lot of activity. So we have to expand our staffing. And so we have funds that we gathered and have designated for that explicit purpose. But we also did secure funds to make our mortgage payments for the 3-year window, for this 3-year capital campaign window, and also is where we secured funds for the $180,000 to hire Ignite Philanthropy for the community campaign. As I said, that's been canceled, pulled the plug on that because of what's going on. A community campaign during economic recession and a pandemic would not be prudent for a faith community, nor I don't think it would be as successful as it would have been 2 years ago if we were to took it then. And then this is all I want to lift up. Approximately 40 households who are connected directly to First Lutheran. We have had other contributions from maybe some Lutheran congregations or maybe some people in the community. But what I want to lift up is when some people who don't understand how Lutheran Church organization structure works is maybe they come from a faith tradition where there's a larger entity that funds these things. In our case, First Lutheran's maintenance and restoration is funded by basically 40 invested households who are directly connected to First. So to add on other language, I think my fear is that although we appreciate those gifts, I'm just fearful that it would cause some people with different experiences with faith communities to think that the larger church body is paying for this. And I think that would discredit the significant contributions of the 40 households that are either active members of First Lutheran or are members of other Lutheran congregations that feel strongly about what we're doing in ministry at First. So I highlight that there and very appreciative for the sacrifice. So not only do we have the work that's been completed and the focus that's taken away from our ability to be about a regular ministry, so too do we have financial resources that are going into restoring sandstone, mortar, stained glass, HVAC systems. And again, those are dollars that are not available for us to develop our ministry and our engagement with the community. So it's a significant, I think, to lift that up as well. And so total capital investment from that 5-year period is $1.3 million. And just to make sure I get this out, is I don't know if it shows up again, is that I don't think it's in this presentation, but 1.3 million has gone in. If we put $300,000, use that number for the bell tower project, that's 1.6 million, and we're looking at probably 1.4 million remaining. The numbers are a little, we aren't as confident about the numbers now. Alan was probably maybe scratching his head too on this, is what's it going to cost to put the elevator in without 1212 building there? We have to build all new, and maybe that'll be a cost savings because we won't have to repurpose an existing older building. We'll be able to build new, but whenever you build something new, that's not cheap either. So, but I think $1.4 million hopefully will allow us to complete the remaining work. So as you can see, we're after the bell tower project, we'll be a little over halfway there. So we have a ways to go, and that speaks to the significance of why we wouldn't want to, and we can't, but even if we could, putting $1.2 million into the bell tower restoration would, I believe, would delay our ability to make our building fully accessible with an elevator and complete the interior enhancements that would benefit our community and ministry activity. So weighing the two side by side is do we, that 1.2 million that could go into the bell tower could get us pretty close to finishing all the remaining capital restoration works and making our building accessible there. August, September. So as soon as we got a sense that we might need to take the bell tower down, we then lined up contractors based on community conversations, referrals. We identified the 3 contractors that we felt were the best qualified. And so Aztec Services Group, their demolition of bell tower in the 1212 building came in at $240,000, a little bit below that. That's one. And then the next one is O'Rourke Demolition of bell tower in 1212 building is at $320,000. And the third bid from HEC SSRG demolition of bell tower was $750,000. 1212 building would be an additional expense with their contract. So 3 prices we secured. So it's helpful to see that. But if you notice, there's a significant range in those prices. So as we received those bids, they did lead us to kind of wonder what's the difference. So we had to do some extra work. Phil Wittry, myself, and Alan Elgersma are the 3 who spent time looking at that to see, okay, how do we get some apples to apples comparisons here? And then why the range in pricing there? Is there a reason to be concerned for that? And then finally, HEC SSRG is the only contractor that we received a bid for full restoration from. They provided a very significant, detailed bid document that provided a total estimate for total restoration of $1.2 million if you did a full restoration of the tower as it is right now. So those are the bids we got in there. So contractor bid selection process, how do we come up with a recommended contractor? HEC SRG's expertise is in restoration, not demolition, and that's something they recognize. They're passionate about restoring historic buildings, and they're really good at it. So good at it that when we asked their peers if they'd like to provide a bid on restoration, they just said no. HEC and SRG, they're the only ones that can really do that. So in Cincinnati, they are the ones. Everyone points to this company as a restoration company as being the premier company for that work. O'Rourke Demolition has an established reputation. I knew O'Rourke just from seeing their cranes around and their big presence in Cincinnati, and I see them on our projects. They present extremely well at our meetings, and they would have been a great company to work with, and they would have been done a fantastic job. Aztec Services Group, we discovered to be the lesser known entity, didn't have as much recognition in Cincinnati, but after meeting with Tom and Al, and using our many network connections that we have in First Lutheran to the membership, we were in the community. We were able to establish that a high level of confidence that they will be able to complete this project in a safe manner, timely manner, and in a quality manner. So we are very comfortable with recommending Aztec Services Group as our choice for the demolition contract. So more on, I guess, a bit on the process comes up next. So important details to know. are the demolition staging and 1212 building demolition. So what that is about is, again, we can't stage in front of the church because of the streetcar and Ray Street. And the bell tower is 20 feet back from the facade of the church. So you can't even go up from the sidewalk like we did in the facade. And it goes up so high, there's not lifts that go up that high. So they have to build scaffolding, and a variety of equipment has to go in there. So the demolition of the 1212 building is necessary to provide a place for the scaffolding to be built and for the dumpsters to be set up and equipment to be in there, so that, and the tower then can be demolished through a series of chutes that will be dropped down stone by stone into these dumpsters. And then they will be using the back east side of the church as the Baldwin Alley. It's just 7 feet wide from curb to curb. So they're not going to be driving big dump trucks back in there, but they will be able to get the necessary equipment back there. And so all the debris will be hauled out that back Baldwin Alley. The 1212 building facade, because the 1212 building is not deemed a public safety hazard, it then has to be, if it's going to be altered, would need to go before the Historic Review Board to verify, because of the historic district, that it can indeed be torn down or altered. And if it is, then it needs to be approved by that board. But because the building, the location of that building is such that that's the only viable option for tearing down the bell tower to abate the dangerous urgent situation, the building can be torn down, but the facade will remain. And the contractor is able to do that. So the facade of 1212, that salmon colored brick building, the front wall will remain in place. And that's good for us. It makes it a little more difficult to take down the building, but that way, when we're done, we will not have to build, which would have been a new cost, some new type of barrier, because until we do our next project with the elevator or whatever's next, we can't have a vacant lot there. And if we did have a vacant lot without a front fence, we'd have to do some landscaping, and we don't have the volunteer power or staff power to maintain a lot there in Washington Park and also control activity during the nights and whatnot. So actually having the 1212 facade remain until our next phase is actually a good thing. Next, the demolition process. I talked about that already. The scaffolding will go up, and the pretty piece by piece, the 2,000-pound bell will be hoisted down and set aside or taken off site to be stored, or not sure where that's going to be for the next several years. Salvage items, the Verdon bell, 2,000 pounds, the Verdon carillon, that is up there by cables and speakers. We'll take that and relocate that. I think there's a louvered area right at the peak of the church. If you look at the front of the church from the park, right at the very peak above the stained glass window, there's wood louvers there. It would be, I think in my mind, pretty easy to put those carillon speakers right there. And so then the sound of the carillon can still be heard. It'll go straight west, but it'll be able to hear it in Washington Park. It won't be a surround sound effect, but for now, maybe that is a quick, easy solution so that the sound of the church chimes can still be heard in Washington Park. As the anonymous donor who made that donation back in 2012, they made that donation with the understanding that their hope was that the Washington Park would always have the sound of church bells in it when it was restored there. So we were able to honor that, the intent of that gift there. And also, I think it's a good solution for now until we can come up with a different future plan for them. And then the furnace in 1212 building is 1 or 2 years old. I don't remember which, but it's about $5,000. We'll pull that out and we'll figure out what to do with that. If we save it or if we sell it or donate it, whatever, but that can come out. And then the copper steeple caps, they're going to try and salvage those if they can. Until they get up there, they won't know how they're attached or what kind of condition they're in, but they will do their best to try and salvage those steeple caps, the patinaed ones, so that we can repurpose them in a future phase project of the restoration effort, maybe related to the elevator or a scaled down bell tower, where the bell tower can go back up in. Timeline is 10 days after contract signed, they could begin demolition work on the 1212 building. We're looking at a December 1st hope for signing of the contract. So that means Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th could be when they could start going. If that'd be the quickest. I don't think it'll happen that quick, but you don't know. One of the things that could delay it is I'm meeting tomorrow morning the abatement inspector to check and see if there's asbestos or hazardous materials in the bell tower or the 1212 building. If we pass that, then it's we won't have any delays. If there is a significant amount of material to be abated, that'll be an extra cost that's not in the contract. The contractor will have to pay to have that removed safely, and also to incur another 10-day wait period with the EPA for some paperwork processing. So we will add 10 days onto our wait time if there is abatement work to be done there. 60 days is what they have built in for the time to complete the project. They thought maybe once the scaffolding goes up, it could be down in a month. I heard that at one point. And so that means if it goes, we raised up, what if with COVID-19 or weather, it's going in winter and it's cold up there, 130 feet in the air, and worker safety. So those things could be sources of causes of work delay. So it's less than desirable start time. If you're going to pick a time of year and circumstances to do this, this is not ideal with the pandemic and with potential weather delays, even in Cincinnati. And so if we go beyond 60 days, we're looking at about $210 a day for additional scaffold rental expense. So we're hoping that they're right about the 1 month, that we have 1 month cushion. Worst case is we get past 2 months, then we're looking at that $200 a day extra cost incurred there. Then after that, so the contract is a lump sum, which means it's like buying a car. You buy a car, you pay that price. So this means there's no GMP or guaranteed maximum price or shared savings if it comes in under. So say the contract's for $240,000 and it only costs $230,000 to do the job. Some contracts will be a split. You know, a contractor saves $5,000 and you save $5,000, but that's not the case in this one. It's a lump sum. So the contract is the amount, which is, I like the reassurance of that is then we don't have to worry about any overages or any, with the exception of the weather, the scaffolding rental thing. But so there's some level of comfort in that, especially given the price that we came in. Next would be important details. So the roof cap will need to be constructed in the remaining lower tower structure. You saw the picture there with the blue line on it. That's that roof cap that has to be designed. And Alan has been working on a design that will then, with the engineers, so Alan will, as an architect, design something, the engineer will say, yep, we can do that, that can be built. And then it goes to the city for approval. The city reviews it and says, yep, we agree it can be built. And then the historic review board, because the district ran, would have to look at it and say it's appropriate for the over the Rhine neighborhood. So there's a lot of process to go through there. So right now, the unfortunate part is we can't put this in front of a contractor to secure a bid and know how much it's going to cost, because we don't know what it's going to be. Contractor, if we went to a contractor, say, can you give us a bid? And they'll say, give you a bid on what? And say, well, we don't know yet. So you can see that's the reality of where we are. So Alan is working hard, graciously, with his time, and it is to get that there. Well, we are pursuing right now the lowest cost option to keep our costs down. Interesting, one idea was that it's possible that there could be generated interest, as I've seen here in the past 24 hours from the community, that perhaps the community wouldn't be able to raise the funds, nor do we necessarily want them to restore the bell tower. But if the community was passionate about it, the community could take ownership of funding the bell tower structure now. And so rather than putting a temporary cap on for 2 or 3 years until we can get to it, we could fund something now that would then allow us to put the bell tower right back up right away, and it'd be a more permanent solution rather than the short-term solution. So that's all conjecture, and we're not going to actively pursue that. But if people are insistent on helping or doing something, we're not going to say no either. That's message about Alan there. So Alan, again, thank you for your work on that. Priscilla, thanks for letting him work on that. And we have 3 contractors already lined up, identified, that we're ready to give bids to once we have that design. That's that. Next would be, what's next? Would be congregational meeting is next Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve at 6:30. So the hope and the purpose of the meeting is to authorize first leadership to sign the demolition contract with the Aztec Services Group and an additional necessary contract for the roof cap construction. I'll give an example of a motion here at the end of the presentation, so get more details on what that looks like. So hopefully we're going to gather, ask all your questions tonight, because 6:30 on Thanksgiving Eve, I'm thinking about 7 o'clock Thanksgiving worship with the Pie Fellowship afterwards. So anyone who delays Thanksgiving Eve worship and Pie Fellowship is not going to make Pastor Brian happy. So now this is the night, or email me or call me separately, and I'll be glad to talk things through with you. So Aztec Services Group contract is for $238,490 if it's approved. We can sign the contract on December 1st after mailed ballots have time to be received. It sounds like some election we've just went through, and they're still trying to wrap up here in our nation. But we have the meeting on Wednesday night. We need 3 days for people to be able to mail the ballots in. And so we're hoping that by Tuesday, December 1st, we'll have received enough of the ballots that we'll be able to make a decision that it's affirmative, which I haven't heard any questions why. It's really kind of a procedural thing here, because we have no choice but to take the bell tower down. So that's not the question. The question is, can the leadership team sign it? If we don't, the city of Cincinnati, after 30 days, will step in and they will do it for us, and they'll send us a bill. So we have identified the lowest cost option here. And we also, you'll see, we have a significant, if not most or all the funds available to fund it. So it's not a hard message to communicate, so we can really focus on just the process and then also lament the loss of this bell tower structure. Demolition of 1212 building could begin as early as December 10th, with demolition completed by February 1st. This is significant here to be mindful of, so the demolition is done by February 1st. And then as soon as they're done, they're bringing the bell tower down, the scaffolding's coming down to that level. Then the remaining scaffold then is handed over to another contractor, who will then construct the roof cap on the lower part of the tower that we've been talking about. So that's where another contractor comes in, takes over the rental of the scaffolding and liability and insurance, and takes over the whole project that way, and then does the construction aspect of the work, because Aztec is not a construction company, they're a demolition company and abatement company. So they will tear it down, but they identify that, nope, we don't build things that are historic and complex like that. So we will have to secure a contract bids, and then a contractor will then take that over. So that'll be some finesse there to line up a contract in an amount of time so that they can actively take over that. Because imagine if we start this in mid-December, by mid-January, if it goes fast, by mid-January, they could be ready to hand the keys of this project over to the construction company. We don't want a month or 2 month delay for that company to come in and finish the project, because we'll be paying the scaffold rental there. Then after that is 2023 to 2025. We will have our next 3-year capital campaign, an internal campaign with the First Lutheran Faith Community, and that's where we'll secure our next available capital funds, because people like to ask the question is, so after the bell tower is down, when will you do the next phase? Well, it's funding based, and so our next opportunity is through funding from the First Lutheran Community, and it depends on how that campaign goes in the fall of 2022. For that next 3-year period. Financing the demolition of the tower. We have, I'm just going to go with the highlight bold things there, is we have $65,000 in our general fund reserve, which is fantastic. I think that's the highest it's been since I've been here, with just clear of other commitments, non-designated. So it's just $65,000, and that's a factor of, one, generosity that was encouraged last fall with our Faith Forward commitment. To people reflect on that. Number 2, it's a reflection on decreased expenses because we've been closed. We aren't hosting ministry events, so we furloughed some staff members because we're not hosting events, or we're not having piano on Sunday morning. Now, on the other hand, we're having a digital sacristan, so we replaced that work, but we just aren't using utilities or things like that. So we are running, a strong financial effort here during this time of pandemic. So there is some benefit that way. So there's we could use those reserves for emergency purposes during a time of economic uncertainty. We'd rather not spend that down too far, but that would be our first option for securing additional funds if needed. We also have $100,000 in ministry staff fund, and so we have protected that, and we are committed to doing so. And I talked to people at first. No one thinks it's a good idea that we use those funds for any other intended purpose. We still don't know what the future is. The pandemic has changed the landscape, but we are very much committed to the hope that we will be able to hire a second pastor. That should have happened in maybe as early as June of 2020, which was 5 months ago. Imagine how different it'd be now if we had done that. But instead, now we're going to wait and see what 2021 brings. And we are protecting that. It's a source of hope for our community. And we really hope that our future will allow us to do something along those lines. So that would be probably the last option we'd want to consider. But we can't, that's just, this is a matter of disclosure. Everything made known, brought to light. These are the cash assets we have. And next would be our third financial resources for the capital fund. So we have cash on hand in the account. We have outstanding pledges. Those are, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're estimating $130,000 in outstanding pledges. We have a strong level of confidence will be received by the end of 2022 as part of this On Track or Faith Forward capital campaign. And then we also received a generous gift, as you've heard if you're part of First, $120,000 gift, which is for the future elevator, but the donor said that they appreciate the fact that the bell tower situation has to be addressed before we can install an elevator. So these funds are available to be used towards the demolition of the bell tower. As you can see, that significantly changes our financial situation here. And so these funds also that we have, when I talk about capital funds, the $130,000 projected, the cash on hand, the $120,000, we have a $3,200 monthly mortgage payment. So we need about 12 times about $40,000 call it a year to service our mortgage payment. Our mortgage debt balance is $581,000. So that's something mindful of too. So we do not have, First Lutheran does not, this is our financial snapshot here. I guess I'll go back, finish this one, and I'll say that. So we have identified then, looking at our capital resources, we have identified $280,000 that can be used on the tower demolition project in its entirety, okay? Once we surpass that threshold of $280,000, we will need to consider funding sources outside of the capital fund resources. If not a significant amount, we could use the general fund reserve dollars. We saw that there's $65,000 there. Another option would be borrowing funds from Mission Investment Fund, our mortgage lender. We could go back and say, could we borrow some additional funds? Interest rates are low. I've heard more support for that than using our ministry staff fund, is what I've heard. But that's something, if you have an opinion on that, you can let me know, and that'll help maybe speed the conversation up next Wednesday night. But so with that, you saw that we have a contract that we're looking to sign just almost $240,000. That means we have $40,000 available to build the temporary roof cap, pay architect and engineering fees associated with the project, also to build a back wall along the newly vacant 1212 lot along the alley. And then any other, maybe there's an abatement expense that comes up. But so $40,000 will not cover all of that. I'm confident based on what I've seen in recent bids on construction. And so we'll need to use some other resources, and we'll look at that in a second in the proposed or possible motion, suggested motion that could be used for our congregational meeting. And so here it is, yeah, possible congregational meeting motion. This is possible. The leadership team needs to talk about this, but this is something where your input and comments would be appreciated as we craft this. And so Wednesday night, we will make a motion, and then it'll be seconded, and then there'll be discussion about it. And then if there's no discussion, we'll call the question, we'll have a vote. And then what the vote means is that traditionally it would be maybe a paper ballot, or all in favor, aye, all opposed, same sign, that kind of thing. But this time we'll adjourn the meeting, and then everyone will be instructed to fill out their paper ballot and then mail it back to the church. So here's the motion that it could read like this: is First Lutheran's leadership is authorized to sign the Aztec Services Group contract in the amount of $238,409 for the purpose of demolishing the bell tower and the 1212 Ray Street building. First Lutheran's leadership is also authorized to incur expenses necessary to complete the demolition project, which includes items such as the installation of a roof cap on the remaining tower, construction of a barrier on the east side of the 1212 lot, and payment of engineering architectural fees. These expenses are not to exceed $80,000, of which $40,000 can be taken from the general fund reserve. Now, what that does is it allows us to sign the $240,000 contract with Aztec Services Group. So that's an easy one. This next one, though, is, it allows the leadership team to incur expenses such as, so it's not comprehensive because we don't know what the expenses are going to be. But for the benefit of efficiency and then not having to come back and have several congregational meetings to authorize additional expenses, the $80,000 hopefully amount is enough to cover whatever might come up. If we were to go beyond that $80,000 expense for that remaining amount of work, then we should come back to the congregation and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is costing more than we thought, and we need to talk and figure out how we're going to fund this work, or this is why it's happening this way. And I'm hopeful that we won't need that much, but it just hopefully is enough to cover us and prevent us from having a special meeting of the congregation to authorize the expenses. So with that though but then where does that money come? If we have $240,000 spent on the Aztec contract, and then we spend, say it's, use an example, maybe the remaining expenses are $50,000. Well, we only have $40,000 up to $280,000 for capital fund resources. So the first $40,000, that's easy, that comes from the capital fund. But then we've gone over that $280,000 threshold I mentioned by $10,000. So where does that $10,000 come from? We identified our options are the general fund reserve. We have $65,000 there. We have $100,000 in the staff ministry fund. I have not heard, and nor am I excited about taking funds out of there. Or we could go and borrow the $10,000 from Mission Investment Fund. Those are the three options that I would lift up as our possible paths forward. Another option would be go to the congregation and ask for additional funds. I've been pretty consistent and adamant that I do not want to do that. Our small faith community of 40 households has done quite a bit, and during these uncertain times, I don't think it's fair, nor I don't think it's healthy as we look at the future of more of these capital campaigns. I think we make 3-year commitments internally, and we honor those, and we leave that be and not go back and be asking again and again. So when we say it's a 3-year commitment, it's a 3-year commitment, and that's what you're able to do. So if people want to adjust, they can, but to be intentional about going to ask people, I'm not supportive of that idea, as I would be the one doing that asking. So with that, I think, especially when we have the $65,000 general fund reserve, and I would say this about our financial situation: the election is over, and the stock market seems to be content with it. It's grown. The vaccine discovery has increased the value there, and so from a market level standpoint, the economy seems to be good. There's certainly a lot of financial hurt in small businesses and people who work in hourly jobs and service industry. So I don't want to discount that. But First Lutheran, our finances are certainly connected to what's happening in the larger economy in the stock market. So that does inform our decisions when we look to our financial forecasts. So next, that would be that's what that could look like. And then so finally, that's thanks for your support of First Ministry too. And then the final words on this whole presentation, which should shape and form everything, is share the love of God. We're not a historic preservation society. We are a faith community, and we are about the business of sharing the love of God. So ask the question, how does restoration of our historic building enhance our ability to share the love of God with the people that we serve in Cincinnati? I think that's the question that we should be asking and framing all of this, and that helps guide us as leaders. So with that, I'm going to open it up to stop the share here and open it up to conversation and questions. Remember, you can't ask questions on Wednesday because I want pie.
I have one question. Are there any photographs of the bell?
I have one. I upgraded my computer, and I always hate upgrading technology because then I lose things in the digital world, and they're on my old laptop, and I have a couple pictures of the bell from 2015 when I went up there. I need to go up and get some fresh ones, but I don't have any because some people today were asking a picture of the bell, and I don't. So I'm going to have to don't tell anyone. Go up and get some pictures maybe tomorrow while the guy's doing his inspection.
Would there be any, from 125 years ago?
No.
Anywhere? No.
There are not many. To be honest, there are not many archival photos like the ones you found of the sanctuary from 1939-40. Yeah. I only have one picture of the facade of the church. That's not an etching or a drawing from the 1940s that catches the facade there, which is very important. We have a 1942 centennial celebration for the congregation that has one picture with 1940 cars right in front and that 1212 facade. But there are not many pictures from prior to the 1980s, I would say 1970s, and then only a few in the 70s and 80s to that.
Do you think Verdon might have something,
No,
you know, like historic catalog or anything?
Well, you could look and see if they had a historic catalog. What we got from Verdon was they did have a fire that damaged a lot of their stuff, but they did find the registry book that recorded the sale of the bell in 1895 in February to Louis Mons, the treasurer at the time, who signed it for took possession of it just before, 2 months before they dedicated the building, but it was $420. For that bell there, which this day, if you get it new, 2,000-pound bell, it'd probably be close to 100,000. If you've been to Lutheran Church of Resurrection or Prince of Peace, I think they both bought them, but they had $10,000 Reformation, 500 Reformation bells. And they're small bells. They're about this big, maybe basketball size, and ours it's big. So $100,000 might be a low estimate on the value of that bell. Which, if you're passionate about bells, that's one thing, but it could be, I'm not gonna, I just had this thought briefly and then I chase it away because I really don't like it. But when I was looking at the estimates for the whole project, the details, the elevator stuff, the equipment for the elevator is 125,000. And I just thought about what's the value of the bell, and it's more than $100,000. So I thought, well, maybe we could find someone who would, we'd give them a bell and they'd donate an elevator, but that's we'd be out of bell though. That'd be sad. I think I might be more sad about losing the bell than the bell tower.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the cap, the temporary cap that's going to be after they take the tower down to the blue line. It seems like to me like there's going to be this time frame between when that new roof, I'll call it a roof, is going to be put on there. So is there going to be, and I know, Alan, you got this all figured out, but is there going to be like a blue tarp on the top of that? Or what's just going to get us from point A to point B while the three contractors and the design work is decided on?
Yeah, Alan's not on now, so he can't answer that.
Okay.
Alan, Priscilla, maybe it was just Priscilla. I never heard Alan, but but they popped off. It looks like.
Okay.
But the answer to your question is that's been raised up, because what happens even during the demolition, when you're taking the tower down, you're going to have an open chimney as soon as you take that top steeple rip off. So we don't want water going down and damaging, because that just goes right down into the ceiling of the gallery where the bell rope is. So
Yeah.
we want to. So they're very mindful of that. Their comment was, we'll just watch the forecast. If it's going to be sunny and dry for 3 days, we won't have to worry about covering it. But if it's going to rain for 3 days, then we'll have to make sure that we have, just like you said, blue tarp over it and something like that. And then when we get down, that's why it's important to have it orchestrated, is that when they get down, the one contractor leaves, the other one comes in, and they will then immediately start the construction process, and they will then be responsible for keeping the water and moisture out during that time. But if there's a delay in selecting a contractor or getting, if they can't mobilize and do the work in a timely way, if things go really well for Aztec and they're done mid-January, and say we go with HGC to do the construction and they're not able to come on until mid-February, then I think that's why we agreed to have a pastoral intern. Pastoral intern Tyler will be up there holding down a tarp over the bell tower cap, to make sure it stays
With a bucket.
with the bucket. Yeah, we'll give you a bucket. I got a couple 5-gallon buckets for so. And so that's a solution. Is that a helpful answer?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm not sure that's on Tyler's job description, but
Well, hey, that's why he came to first. The job description's out the window at first. You just do whatever shows up. You show up each day for work and you say, well, I didn't think I'd be doing that.
You just call me Quasimodo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
the other thing I thought of, since Linda and I have been spending time at 1212 emptying that out, is there's a pretty decent door that empties out in the back of that alley. So so maybe somebody else has also thought of this, but it seems like it would be prudent, rather than to just build a concrete brick wall after they're all done there, but to put that door back in so that there's access So there's access to the alley back there for
Yeah,
whatever.
that, it's a, what is it, CMU wall, is that what it is? Or anyway, the cinder block wall that's back there,
Yes.
that's gonna be knocked down. One of the
Right.
first things is I'll get in, but the door could be saved. We have to
Yeah.
figure out, yeah, what that wall structure will look like. It'll need to be something that keeps people out, not to let people go back in there, but and again, we're gonna be looking for the lowest cost solution there.
Right. You can only use it from the inside, the door that's there. It's got that panic bar on it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
But if you look across the Tender Mercies, they just have a wrought iron fence along with the Cincinnati Metro CMHA housing, the public housing right there along the other side of the alley. All it is a wrought iron fence.
Yes, right.
So that seems to work for them. Maybe that's our solution, is we just do that. It wouldn't be as foolproof as keeping people out of there though. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
That's another thing that's on our list. People are asking, have you thought about this, this and this? And, you
Yeah.
know, could maybe, I mean, as far as other things, you know, trying to do fundraising with this or whatever. And I said, you know, we're scrambling to keep the water out when they start tearing this thing down. And we have some pressing things in front of us, and it's consuming a lot. All of a sudden, we've gone from 0 to 100 in the capital restoration business once again at first.
Yeah, if you go up and take pictures of the bell tomorrow, take some pictures from the bottom up. You know, so that from the box, before you start going up the wooden steps from the bottom up, because it's pretty cool.
Well, the picture of the bell, I think is just a real quick one. I'm gonna get the bell because that's what people are asking. What's the bell look like? I've got that one that I made a poster of with me standing next to it, you know, with a
Yeah.
$5, that one, that somewhere. But there's also, if you go out there, there's a Facebook Live video I made last May, I think. I went up the bell tower. If you remember that, you go back in the YouTube channel and go back to the end of May, I think, is one of the Wednesday noon prayers. It's up in the bell tower. You can see the screenshots. You'll know which one it is. So you can see it then, and you can share that with friends if people are asking what's it like up there. People really like that video. So maybe I might repost that one again. Just right now, that might be a timely thing to do, is move that back up to the top of our news feed, freshen it up, because people will enjoy seeing that.
Yeah.
But with it, that's one thing I too is put out. For example, I receive, what's neat about this is the response from the community is how strong it is. Maybe the thought I was having earlier, I drew a blank, but what the idea was is that the response from the community is very strong. And I think so the question is if we would have proceeded with the capital community campaign, we would have been able to discover and encourage a sense of excitement about our restoration work. But on the other hand, I think the level of excitement and passion about what's going on is simply because of the urgency. It's much like, using a terrible example of someone relative who's dying. You know, it's like, well, I can't wait till next week to go visit him. I got to go now. This can't be put off. And so there's this sense of urgency that's causing people to step forward and ask questions. We had someone ask if I could find $600,000 to add your $300,000, that'd be $900,000. I bet we could find a contractor that could do it for less than 1.2. And well, that's a generous offer. I don't know where the $600,000 would come, but based on the person who made the offer, I suspect they could find it and procure that. It might take some time though. That's one problem. The second thing is I left up is that along with the procurement of those funds and restoration of the tower, I'd want to have an endowment established that was funded so that the bell tower could be maintained in a timely manner.
Right.
Lest in one generation, there's another group of First Lutheran people who are having to deal with this question again. So I think it's more than just the cost of it's not just the price tag of restoration, it's also the future stewardship. I talk about you can go back to 1922 and you start to see the first glimpses of financial stress that the building brought on the congregation. So you think of over 100 years, or really 1922 to 98 years, how much of the ministry dollars the faith community was deprived of because those dollars went into the building. You think of how much time and treasure, sweat we put in the building, and it's a ministry. But on the other hand, boy, we could certainly have done a whole bunch in the community with our time and financial resources if we weren't putting them in the building. We've done a lot, and we have to have a balance. That's why protecting the $100,000 staff ministry fund is so important in my mind. And so back on that, so if we would have gone to the community and conducted a community campaign, it wouldn't have been an urgent situation.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so would the response have been like it is right now? It would not have. But underlying out there, there is a strong sense, much like we've heard, a lot of people who, we have a lot of goodwill in the community and our just earlier discovery studies, but not significant financial resources. So the message I've consistently run into is that the 40 households are first and our friends are first who are committed are the ones who need to be mindful of we're on this journey. So we need to make decisions based on that. If there's other resources that come available, fantastic, but we shouldn't be holding out a lot of hope for those. That's it. Anything else? Anyone? Since we got you know, any questions on that motion? Any commentary on the thought on where do we go for additional financial resources once we deplete our $280,000? You know, I'm proposing lifting up the general fund with $65,000, but I wouldn't want to spend it down to zero. But I can't imagine we're going to spend that much more than the $40,000 for the remaining work. But are you in agreement on the staff ministry bucket protecting those dollars? And what are your thoughts about going back and borrowing more dollars? A mission investment fund would be another option. Yeah, you're kind of iffy on that. You know, Valerie, so you're kind of supportive of the general fund reserve, but you live with the treasurer and he likes having a big reserve. So I don't know if he's hearing you, but
No, he's not here right now. He probably
yeah,
will.
if he was there, he'd be kind of making funny faces at you. Wait a second. He'd be saying, just make sure you don't spend more than 40.
Right.
Well, yeah, we should have some in the reserve, in the general fund reserve, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we'll definitely maintain that. I think the question is how low will the treasurer let us go before he says it's a good idea to borrow money?
Yeah.
And my hope is that I think what I say the language would be is we'd be authorized to go into that $40,000, which would leave $25,000 in the reserve, which is, you know, we've never been below 10,000, or I mean, really, I think 15,000 is the lowest we've gotten in our general fund reserve in my 6 years here. And Craig was tossing and turning every night. You know, he was sweating, but we've never been anywhere. We've never had a problem paying the bills at first since I've been around. So that's been reassuring, and we like that because it relieves financial anxiety. Who wants to live in that world where you're wondering if you can pay your bills?
No.
Oh, we have.
Yeah, I was just gonna
We have,
say,
right.
we have.
Yeah,
They're done that.
yeah.
Don't want to do it again.
The last church I went to, the churches I go to seem to have a history of that. And I've never I hear people and I see people who have lived through those years and I say, well, I'm going to make sure that never happens to me. So far, so good. But
Yeah, so far, so good. We haven't jinxed you anyway.
yeah.
Well,
Your news bit was great, Pastor.
What's that?
Your
Oh,
news
did you
bit.
see it?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it was so good.
Good.
I just thought it was wonderful that they ended the bit with a prayer.
I thought so too. That was fantastic. I thought that was great. The end of in Jesus' name I pray. I thought that is wonderful. Yeah, what a great
Like, it
witness
was like
that
you're
was.
blessing the whole city.
Yeah, right out there in Washington Park, and then there's a prayer, and that was, yeah. And the reporter David Winter, he was a very nice guy, genuine, authentic, and very excited to hear the story. And he was genuinely get excited. He said, "Man, this is a neat opportunity for the city to come together, and maybe they could, you know, come up with the funding to create that more permanent, reduced bell tower structure that the bell could go back up into, and then that way the city would have ownership of that, and then we wouldn't have to wait. We could do that now. But again, that takes." Someone would have to step forward from the community and say, we're going to do this. We're going to take charge on. I mentioned the city one, and I received an email today from the executive director of the Cincinnati Preservation Society, Paul Muller. And Paul's email to me was, I didn't reach out to him. His email to me was, I'm receiving all these messages and emails about your bell tower. Tell me what's going on so I can see if we can help somehow. You know, so that's talk about creating, you know, energy in the community, that people are going to him saying, hey, did you hear this? We need to do something. Can you help? And so he's reaching out to me. And so I'm hoping I responded, hey, we had this meeting and watched recording of it. But it is always, you know, it's someone like that, I'm sure gets lots of requests for assistance, and no doubt. And so we're one among many, but it might be a matter of the tidal wave of interest in this project might lead to something. But I think one very practical thing was, it would let me, was the photographs. Are there photographs? And we need to document it, as Beth Johnson appropriately identified, before we demolish it. We need to document it and record the details of the tower so it could be rebuilt one day and be archived. And, you know, I've never documented a historic bell tower before, so I don't know how to do that. That's where I think the Cincinnati Preservation Society, well, that's what they live and breathe, I would think, that they would have. And Linda, this is directed towards you. If you have any connections of people or any knowledge on how in the world, it would be great if someone would just donate. We're not, I guess, in this situation, the amount of interest in the tower, I'd be disappointed if we had to go pay money to hire someone to document the details of the tower. Because if this truly is a benefit to the city and there's a passion about preserving it, it can't just keep coming back to us to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's a community benefit. And so hopefully someone could provide a grant to pay someone, or someone would just donate their time and do that. Because we do need to do that, and we need to get going on that, because like I said, if this starts mid-December, you know, scaffolding goes up, you won't be able to see the tower anymore and document it.
Right. Did you see Deanne Vallow's Facebook post? Just a
The
bit
drone?
ago, where she has a couple of videos.
Yeah, she had a friend had a drone, and so she
Yeah.
sent them to me a text message. So there's drone videos of the bell tower from today.
Yeah, they're
really
really
cool.
good.
They go up and fly around the bell tower. Neat.
Mhm.
So go to Joe and Deanne's Facebook page.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and check that out. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I know I keep bringing this up, but I think the interior is as interesting as the exterior. Because it's a 128-year-old construction, and how there's a set of it looks like steps that go up the inside of the tower, and there's no way that you could actually climb up those, but who in the world, why did they have them up there? So it's like this wooden ladder on the interior part, going all the way up to the, you know, to the peak, to the pinnacle. So
Once you get up by the bell.
no, past the bell.
No, past that's what I mean. So it goes up past her. Yeah, there's a scuttle hole. If you look on the east side of the steeple, there's a panel that would have opened up, and I imagine that would have been to allow a hoist system to go out that and then go down, so they could hoist stuff up to the very top. And so some German who they fed a lot of beer and said, hey, trying to think of a Hans, or what German name?
One of my relatives.
Yeah, one of Linda's relatives I could see climbing up
Be
there.
careful now, talking about the Germans.
Yeah,
okay?
one of Gabrielle's relatives, you know. I'll do that. Off they go.
Names like Holliker and Schrader, we all got blood in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, seriously. So that, you know, and I do have a friend who's a videographer, and I haven't approached him, but if that's something we want to explore, and I'd ask him to do it for free, to go inside and do the, you know, the documentation from the inside.
And again, I don't know what to look for future restoration efforts. That's the key thing there. Someone who is an architectural preservationist would know how do you document it so that you know the scope and scale of it. Right. That's what, you know, I can take pictures of stuff and then some, well, how big is that window? I don't know. I think I was about 10 feet away, and it was 3 feet under it. So let's do the math. I think they're with laser technology these days, they can go in and shoot lasers around there. And we do have some schematics from previous bid processes with the tower, but you know, I think again, that's the level, because once it's gone, as we all know, it's just a matter of getting old photographs out and trying to figure out what things look like and how big they were. So that's yeah, that's the deal. All right, anything else?
Well, ask Paul Muller for that. That's, yeah.
Well, right, that's what I was saying, is that's where, you know, it's our previous discovery study efforts revealed that there's some resources available, but for substantial resources we need to restore the tower, they're not out there. But something like this could be helpful.
Right.
Very practical and something that we could go to the community and say, hey, you know what, the Historic Preservation Society helped with this.
Okay, to go back on your money question, I would be more in favor of borrowing the money. If we have to go above that 80 grand,
Above the 280 or above the 80,000?
above the 80,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I
that's
wouldn't
just
want
my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Me too.
and as low as the rates are right now,
Right.
so
Mhm.
that would make sense.
And with this, you know, as we look at the economic situation of the finances of it, it can sound a little bit discouraging, you know, to even have these conversations. But on the other hand, on the other side of this, we will be clear of all things bell tower. No, really. I mean, we laugh about it, but what that means is we will be clear of all things bell tower, which means we our next focus will be on, okay, so what's it look like with the empty 1212 lot to build a bell tower structure and some type of entryway. That could be very, very simple. Just could be a small entryway that gets you to the elevator door and you open it up and you can ride the elevator. Then we could, in another phase, expand that out and make it a fancy welcome hospitality center. But so that could be just, hey, we're just going to put the elevator structure there and a glass entry area to get you to that door. And that's it. That's phase one. But that's where, but the point being is now after mid-February, First Lutheran's focus is on that elevator. Yep. So that's it.
All right, good job.
Okay,
All right. Well, I'll let you go. Thanks for staying. And this will be, I'll email this and the other one out from this morning, the recorded version. So that'll go out in email blast tonight, and then it'll be on the YouTube channel as well. Otherwise, we'll see you Sunday morning for live Zoom worship, and then next Wednesday at 6:30 for the congregational meeting. If you remember, you got the ballot in the mail, and you'll be able to mark that after we've had the motion and then had discussion, and you know exactly what you're voting on. Don't vote early.
Thank you.
good
Go
night.
in
Night,
peace.
everyone.
Bye.
Share the love of
Good
God. Bye,
night.
Mom. Have a good
Bye.
afternoon in Palm Springs.
Bye, Pat.
It's still
Bye. Good to
afternoon.
see everyone.
Linda, I'll be in touch.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
okay.